now the podcast starts. The great thing about Halloween is its simplicity. It's such a simple story. It's so elegant, and it's so stylish, it's so kind of stylized. What I would say about Halloween is it's not about the killings, it's about the bits in between the killings. John Carpenter, one of his greatest gifts was being able to generate atmosphere. His films are so atmospheric. You know, they're so suspenseful, they're so tense, and you kind of sitting there watching what's going to happen next.
Hello there, and welcome to the first episode of a Now the Podcast Starts series of movie review and discussion podcasts focusing on the Halloween franchise. I'm your co-host Dan, and this is my co-host
Howard, yes, hello.
Dear listener, we must give you a quick warning at this point. Unfortunately, this podcast is not safe for work, so don't listen to it near to young ears or your boss. Let's just introduce ourselves a little bit. We are horror movie fans and movie buffs in general. We're a pair of shamefaced actors,
Yes.
occasionally. And
That's what we say anyway.
we like to get together and discuss our favourite movies in depth. And this year we had the idea, having previously devoted a podcast, which we're still working through, to the many great movies of Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. We have now this year decided to run through the entire Halloween franchise in a series of podcasts. I think the idea probably came to us because of the new Halloween film which is coming out this year, which I am quite excited about.
I'm excited about it as well.
Very. And I think it's just the perfect point to look back in this very strange way, because the new Halloween film ignores all the old Halloween films. So, in a perverse sense, I thought it was a good idea to rewatch all the old films which will not be relevant to the new film in any way. But perhaps now is the best and final chance to do it. I think I also wanted to explore the whole series because it's obviously a very, very popular series, and every film in the series has its fans. And I'm not necessarily a fan of every film in the series, but I kind of want to look at them in a new way and appreciate them, which is why it's not just me and Howard hosting these particular podcasts. We're going to have a bunch of special guests discussing each movie in the series. And our first special guest is here right now. He's another Dan. We'll call him Dan B to differentiate.
Yes, not Dan 2, because that makes me feel lesser.
No, definitely. We're definitely on an equal footing here. Welcome, Dan, for being our first guest on the Halloween podcast.
Why, I am honoured. Thank you for having
Yes,
me.
and thank you for coming, yes.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
Relatively sober.
that makes a difference for me. Not to be intoxicated in any way.
Obviously, I put a call out on Facebook for people who are fans of the Halloween franchise.
It was a bit like this.
Yes, it was essentially it's that secret planet, the age.
News team assemble.
They all came running out of the
Everyone went, I love it. All of them. I love them.
You were one of the respondents.
Yes.
So, tell us a little bit about yourself, Dan. And your connection to the franchise.
Halloween franchise. Okay, well, like yourselves, like you said, I am a huge film fan, film buff. Cult films more so than, the regular farce. And I'm not that much into the English period dramas, really.
Okay.
Not my thing. Anything with a bit of blood and guts and bollocks, for lack of a better term. I like something with a bit of energy.
You like a bit of edge?
Yes, I'm a little, I'm not that edgy myself, but I like things with edge. But yeah, I'm an actor as well. I follow, kind of older, slightly kind of to the left-hand side kind of actors. So I think people like Lance Henriksen, Robert Englund. Those are those are my acting heroes, really. Those kind of the B movie actors.
Brad Dourif.
Yeah, Brad Dourif. Bruce Campbell. Everybody in the kind of B movie cult
I love those people
sphere.
as well.
I really, they're some of the best, people.
I'm there with you.
So I'm an actor as well. So yeah, I do a bit of that here and there. I'm a big comic book fan as well, which kind of slides into my cult obsession, I think, as well, because a lot of the cult movies are a bit comic booky in the way, and about
and
supernatural.
inspired by comic books.
Yeah, Halloween for me is kind of. I always used to see the kind of the DVD covers and the VHS covers when I was a kid, and it always kind of fascinated me. This kind of blank, white, expressionless guy with a knife. It's like, it's so bizarre and kind of so, and like for me as a child, I'm like, I'm scared of that, but I'm excited by it. I'm interested. So I think that's where the fascination started, is kind of those kind of classic posters that we saw in those images. You know, and I think it's the same with all the kind of horror characters. They've kind of, I mean, you go to conventions now and you see mums and dads and kids dressing up like, you know, the child murderer, Freddy Krueger, you know, and you think, maybe you shouldn't be dressing up as the paedophilic killer, maybe. But that's their choice. I mean, I was in Alton Towers once, and I was doing the Mike the Night show, and it was Halloween, and there was Freddy Krueger sat in the front row, and I'm like, where's a mum looking after her kids, and I'm like, this is a bit odd. But yes,
Yes, I found that a bit odd.
so yeah, I think you know, as a child and into adolescence, I kind of went, right, so all these films that I looked at as a kid and was kind of a little afraid of, a little excited by, I should look into them. And Halloween was one of the first ones I looked into, and what a film. What a film. But that's kind of my connection to it, and I've seen the various sequels probably a good maybe 10, 15 years ago now.
Right.
So you know, I remember them in bits and pieces. But it's the first one for me. That's the one.
Good man. I get where you're coming from exactly with the whole kind of the response to the video shop graphic art kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The one that I always remember from my childhood is House, which is a film, I've never seen the film.
No, neither have I.
But
I remember the finger is pushing the doorbell or something.
Yeah, and it's like a weird severed hand with steel coming through it.
I think that kind of, again, like with my comic book obsession, that kind of, because it was back in the day, all the posters were kind of hand drawn, weren't they? There was never photos and things like that. It was always hand drawn. Kind of beautiful. Like Star Wars is the classic hand drawn poster, isn't it? And I think that image, those images, kind of like took me into the kind of that world slowly but surely. But yeah, beautiful posters. I'd rather see a hand drawn poster than any of the modern posters now.
He's gone from here. The evil is gone.
Nice one, Dan. So Howard, how about yourself? What was it that drew you to Halloween in the first
Well, I don't know. I was trying to remember the first time I actually saw it. It would be when I was a teenager, I suppose. It would be. I know it came out on video. When Sell-Through Videos first came out, you could buy videos for $9.99. Halloween and American Way Up in London and Howling were the first ones to come out, and I bought them all. So I think it might have been, I don't know whether I first saw it on the telly or first saw it on video, but it's just, and as a horror film fan, but somebody who grew up on the British tradition of the Dracula films, the Hammer films, the Frankenstein films, this perhaps wasn't quite my thing, but when I watched it, I thought, this is absolutely brilliant. This is brilliant because it's so well, I mean, late 70s, early 80s, John Carpenter is one of the best directors in the world. There's no doubt about that. Assault on Precinct 13 is a masterpiece. The Fog is a masterpiece. The Thing we talked about. But Halloween is sort of, probably is his most famous film. It's his masterpiece. And it's just, the great thing about Halloween is its simplicity. It's such a simple story. There's no gimmicks and there's no, it's just, it's so elegant and it's so stylish, it's so kind of stylized, and it's just, it is a simple story. But then what I would say about Halloween is it's not about the killings, it's about the bits in between the killings, it's about the build-up to the killing. John Carpenter, one of his greatest gifts was being able to generate atmosphere. His films are so atmospheric, they're so suspenseful, they're so tense, and you kind of, you're sitting there watching what's going to happen next. You're not sort of just waiting for the next kill, you're just waiting, what is he going to do next? And the first time I saw it, I thought, this is just brilliant. This is so well made, and it's good. And interesting enough, when my nephew Elliot was about 14, 15, he watched Halloween, and he was fascinated by it. He loved it. Fascinated by the character of Michael Myers, and he watched other more explicit horror films like Friday the 13th. And you might think at that age that's what you want. But no, he loved Halloween. He said these aren't as good. Halloween is the best film. Michael Myers is so fascinating, not because he's so sadistic and killing everybody, but because he's so mysterious and enigmatic and strange, and you don't know what he's going to do. And I thought, well, if somebody he was 15 about 10 years ago, so only 10 years ago, can appreciate a film that was made in 1978 like that, then there must be something about Halloween that is really, I think it's a great film. I was very annoyed because in one of my film books there's the American Film Institute's 400 best films they've chosen, and it's all these Citizen Kanes and all that sort of. And Halloween wasn't on it, Assault on Precinct 13 wasn't on it, and Fog wasn't on it. And I thought, there's no John Carpenter stuff on this list at all. You've got 400 films here, and there's not a single John Carpenter. Rosemary's Baby's on it, Alien's on it. And I thought, that's terrible. John Carpenter was one of the best directors in the world at that time. He was brilliant at what he did. And I just think, is he still not appreciated even now, what he did? Because Halloween changed. It wasn't the first slasher film, but it was the one that sort of, it was kind of seminal. It was one that influenced all the others. So, I mean, there was a spate of slasher films after Halloween. None of them was good. None of them was because they misunderstood what Halloween was about. They thought Halloween was about the killing, and it's not. Halloween is about the
I think I love your passion, Howard. I think the listener might be getting a little bit of a hint that we all are quite fond of the first film.
Yes, this is going to be a very adoring thing. There's not going to be any criticism.
Should we just do it on the first film? All these. Just forget the rest.
Yeah.
Just carry on.
Just do 8, 9, 10 hours on Halloween. I could.
Who couldn't?
So I feel like I should say a little bit about what brought me to Halloween
Yes,
in the first place. My exposure to Halloween was as a teenager. I knew I was a film fan, and I was just becoming a John Carpenter fan. I'd seen The Thing and Escape from New York on television, and I sort of loved them, but not quite. But I could tell that they were different. There was something interesting about them, and I wanted to see Halloween because I'd heard it was a classic film. And I also was aware that supposedly it had loads of sequels, but the sequels were awful. But I thought, I don't need to see the sequels. I'll just see the original. Although the strange thing was the original ended up being like kind of a gateway drug, and I ended up watching all the sequels because you just think, well, I'll just try the next one. Yeah. Because the first one did something which made me want to go back, and I ended up watching all of them. And obviously, we'll go into that. I remember very specifically how I watched Halloween. I didn't have Sky TV, but my sister did, and she taped it for me off UK Gold.
It was on UK Gold?
Yeah. It was in 1996, UK Gold was the only TV channel which showed Halloween on Halloween night. So, so it was just like, that was when I was in the mood.
That's kind of like when they show Watership Down on Channel 5 at Easter.
Right.
They've done that twice, 2 years in a row, and I think it's brilliant.
Well, they always show Heroes of Telemark at Christmas because there's snow in it.
Right.
Yeah.
They're in Norway, so Kate Douglas is... I thought, well, that's sort of festive in the snow.
In a way.
It's not very Christmassy because it's about
more
blowing
like...
up the factory. But...
I mean, they should put Silent Night, Deadly Night, really.
Exactly,
That's the one they should
Let's
put.
put that on every night.
I did watch Black Christmas at Christmas in about 1998, Channel 4, I think.
So good.
And we should obviously talk about that because that's a forerunner to Halloween. Some people think it's better than Halloween. They're wrong.
Yeah, they're wrong.
Well, no.
Sorry, you're wrong.
It's strong. It's very strong.
But no, I enjoyed it, and it does have the late great Margot Kidder.
That's right,
isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's the quintessential bitch in that one.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And also Olivia Hussey, I think.
Oh yes.
It's great cast.
And John Saxon,
Yeah.
who was a bit of a horror... He did a lot of horror films.
He was the cop in Nightmare on Elm Street,
Yes,
wasn't he?
yeah.
It was the dad. He was the dad.
He was
of
the
Nancy.
dad, yeah.
That's right. That's right.
I haven't seen Black Christmas for 20 years, but I remember it
Oh,
well
it's
enough,
good.
I think.
I saw it about 4 or 5 years ago for the first time. It blew me away.
Right.
So good.
So
good.
There was a terrible remake.
I know. I haven't seen that.
But you can say that about every horror film.
You could.
Yeah,
You could easily.
Sadly, including Halloween. Anyway, we're ready to go there. The other thing I strangely remember about Halloween was that it was the last film I saw before I had glasses. I went to the optician.
I don't know why I thought you were going to say before I had sex. I don't know why.
The optician.
It's all that penetration, I think.
Well, they say it's a seminal film.
They certainly do.
Enough of such talk.
Sorry.
Anyway.
It's what you get when you bring me aboard a podcast.
I'll be right back. Don't get dressed.
So something you mentioned, Howard, was the simplicity of the story, and I wanted to use that as the starting point for the discussion, really, because basically, obviously, you can sum up any film in any amount of detail, but Halloween is a pretty simple plot, and therefore I thought I'll go to one of my favourite sources, which we've talked about on our podcast before, Halliwell's Film Guide, because that sums up the plot of every movie in a sentence. But with Halloween, it can be pretty sure that sentence kind of covers everything.
Yeah.
And the sentence is just this. In a small Illinois town, a mad killer escaped from the asylum. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously there's more to the film than that, but that is the basic plot.
Yeah.
And even in 1978, there'd probably been a million films that could follow that description, such as Black Christmas.
Yeah.
It's not too far away. But what is it about Halloween that makes it so strong, that makes it fascinate us? And what did John Carpenter, and not just John Carpenter, but the other people who were involved in the production, bring to it, the idea for the movie didn't come from Carpenter, it came from the producer Erwin Yablans. He was an independent American film producer. He'd seen Assault on Precinct 13, and he had an idea for a cheap horror movie, and he was going to call it The Babysitter Murders, and it was mad killer escapes and stalks and babysitters. That was his plot. Then he had the idea, actually, you know what, we'll set it on Halloween and call it Halloween, because he researched it and was astonished to realise there'd been no movie called Halloween up until that point. And he went to Carpenter with that plot, and Carpenter needed work. I think he'd just done Elvis the movie for TV, and he was 30 at that time. Same age as you.
Yes. So I'm waiting for my big break.
So was I when I was 30, yeah, still and basically Carpenter said, I'll do it on two conditions. One, I want approval of Final Cut. And two, I want, and this was his genius, I think, he said, I want my name above the title. So he wanted to go for the kind of Alfred Hitchcock's North by Northwest thing. And Yablans went, okay, cool. And that's what started the ball rolling. But so that's how the idea was kind of crystallised into a movie. But what do you guys think are the elements which make it special? I mean, how would you paint it?
Well, no, I just think it's not so much the plot; it's what you do with the plot and how you direct it. And again, as I said, it's just creating this atmosphere and creating this suspense of not knowing. See, Michael Myers is a fascinating character. Most serial killers in most of the rip-offs that came off are not. They're just homicidal maniacs. They kill people. But Michael Myers is this kind of, like you say, this unknowable. I mean, what is he? Is he a demon in human form? Is he just psychologically disturbed? Kim Newman said on the commentary for was it Halloween 2 or 3, I can't remember. He said the thing about Michael Myers, you've got to remember this is Halloween, and Michael Myers, he's not just killing these kids. He's playing tricks on them. He's playing games with them. You know, there's the famous scene where he kills the idiot boyfriend, sticks him to the wall, and then he opens the door. PJ Souls is lying on the bed, and he's got the sheet over his head and the glasses on. And I think, why the hell is he doing that? What's that about? He's playing with these people. He's messing with them. If he was just a homicidal maniac, he'd run in and kill her, and that would be it. But he did.
That's what I was going to say, that there is a childlike, I don't want to say innocence, but there's a childlike quality to him, especially like when he stabbed, like you were saying, the Bob, I think the Bob, it's Bob, I think it's called.
Yeah, Bob, the boyfriend.
Bobby or whatever his name. When during his death and into PJ Soul's death, there's, he stabs him, he's quite violently stabs him and skewers him to the door, but then he stands back, tilts his head, almost like a child would or a dog would, to kind of understand what they've done. They're like, oh, I've done this. Oh. And then kind of takes it in. It's like the rage has subsided. Yeah. It's kind of almost post-coital, if you will.
Yeah.
Had the big...
But that's what makes it fascinating.
Then,
why is he doing? What does he see?
Then he dresses... I mean, he's already dressed up anyway.
Yeah.
There is, he's been in an asylum all his life, and like Loomis says, he's literally just stared at a wall, past the wall, to this night, this very night, the night he came home, and he dresses up like a ghost. There is absolutely no need for him to dress up. Why did he even put the glasses on?
What's that? He's got a sense of humour. It's a very twisted sense of humour.
It's a great Black Flea humorous touch that he kills the guy, takes his glasses off, puts a sheet over himself, and then puts the guy's glasses on over the sheet.
And he's cut holes in the sheet. He knows what he's doing. But he's like, I'm going to play the game. I'm going to do the, and the whole stalk. Like kids would follow. As kids, you would follow each other and you'd play hide and seek. That's what he's doing throughout the entire film.
Yeah, he's playing with these people, playing tricks with them. It's Halloween night. He's Halloween pranks.
Trick or treat.
Yeah.
There's no treats really.
No, there's not a treat.
The treat is the film. All the tricks.
Well, the treat is a knife.
Although, have you ever read Roger Ebert's review of Halloween?
I haven't.
He thinks it's great, but he basically says, don't go and watch it, because it's so frightening. The last line of the review is, I would like to be absolutely clear on this. If you do not want to be absolutely terrified, don't go and see this film.
That's like the, it reminds me of the Wes Craven, Last House on the Left. It was like, it's only a movie.
Yeah.
It's only a movie.
It's a great slogan, absolutely.
But it is scary. This film is scary.
Yes.
No, when I was watching it the other night, I thought, this is scary. I've seen this film loads of times, but I feel unnerved by it. Well, because I know what's going to happen, but I still, kind of, I'm so into it that I'm...
That's what I was saying just before the podcast to Howard. I was saying that every time I watch John Carpenter's The Thing, I forget who it is. I forget, like, they get to the scene where they're all tied up and they're testing the blood, and I'm like, who the fuck is he? I'm like, I can't remember. And then all of a sudden, like, you know, he comes out and he attacks everybody, and they're all shitting themselves. But every time I forget, and I've seen that movie hundreds of times. I couldn't even tell you how many times. But every time I'm like, is it this? Is it that? Is he doing this? Is it him now? Is it, you know? And I think that's what's good about John Carpenter. As much as you've seen his stuff, you come back to it and you know and you remember, but you also forget a little.
I think there's maybe something about the fact in that film and Halloween and many of the others, he's so good at using the wide frame, the widescreen frame, that there are always details that you don't spot. And then when you watch it again, you're noticing different things. You know, and it kind of draws you in a bit more. It maybe makes you forget something that you did know, or makes you ask a question that you haven't done before.
It's like there's some things you can watch and you can appreciate second or third viewings, like comedies, you've missed jokes, or, you know, missed a moment or a second, or even, you know, a look or a twitch or a wink, whatever. Like, there's something about rewatching something again and again which makes you, you know, appreciate it. Some films, the opposite can happen. You're like, okay, it's a bit shit, or it's not as good as I remember, or, you know. But Halloween is one of those films where you can find more and more as you watch it.
Yeah, and it still stays fresh. Somehow it's still as scary. It's as powerful and effective as the first time you see it. And this is the great. I can't explain how that's done. I just know that when you've got a really great filmmaker, that's what they can do. They can make something still seem as good as when.
To follow on from your point there, we've talked about the fact that it's scary. We've talked about Michael Myers as a fascinating character. But it's weird that, in a way, the scary moments that we've mentioned and the stuff focusing on Michael is a very small part of the actual film. So how does that contribute? The use of the other characters, the use of... I think you mentioned earlier, Howard, you said it's not about the killings, it's about the bits inside in between the killings. So how does that contribute to it, do we think?
Well, we're talking about the other characters. I mean, first of all, you've got Jamie Lee Curtis, who I do remember when I was a teenager, Jamie Lee Curtis and Kathleen Turner did make quite an impression upon me.
I imagine.
I used to think about that quite a lot.
To be fair, for me, the Jamie Lee Curtis for me was True Lies. That made an impression on me.
I think more or less anything she's in. There's a film called Perfect where she does some aerobics.
Really?
I don't remember that.
Oh well.
But perhaps this is.
We're going into no. Jamie Lee Curtis. She's got star quality in this film. You can tell why she went on to be a big star.
Oh yeah.
And she's a more interesting character than a lot of the heroines who. Yes. In later film, the actresses are stuck with just very bland characters in those films. Jamie Lee is playing. The three girls, they're all really good.
Just before we go on here, I think perhaps now is the moment that we acknowledge that obviously we're three straight white guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
as if they didn't already know.
I wasn't until I saw Jamie Lee Curtis.
But I'm hoping that there will be more diverse voices later in the podcast. And these movies do appeal to a diverse audience.
Yeah, they do.
And I think I really want to hear from them, because this movie is one which is has a huge appeal.
Well, let me just say, I find Donald Pleasance very attractive as well.
Yes, he's a sexy man.
Hey, Linda, Lori, why didn't you wait for me?
We did. 15 minutes. You totally never showed.
That's not true. Here I am.
What's wrong, Annie? You're not smiling.
I'm never smiling again. Paul dragged me into the boys' locker room.
Exploring uncharted territory?
It's been totally charted.
Just talk.
Sure.
Watching a documentary, and I realised how much of a hand Deborah Hill had in this. Who was
literally.
Yeah, literally. She was the little. That's why she has Michael Myers has such a lovely manicured hand in those early shots. But she co-wrote, co-produced. She was very much involved in this piece. And when it came to writing the script, she wrote the majority of the dialogue between the three main leads, the three girls in the part, and and it's realistic dialogue. It makes girls would talk about at that age, those kind of things, having sex with boys and proms and all that, and homework and cheerleading, and it's all realistically, even the dialogue is so tight and so realistic, and that's what is missing, like you say, from a lot of the other slasher films.
I just think you like these three girls. Yeah. They're very sympathetic, very engaging. You like them. There's Nancy Loomis, who's the sarky one. Yeah. There's PJ Souls, who's the ditzy one. And there's Jamie Lee, who's the sensible one. But they're all kind of, and that makes them such a stereotypes, but they're more than that. I think in a lot of modern horror films, you don't really care about the people. You're not supposed to, because such terrible things are going to happen to them that they're deliberately not made.
Yeah, they're usually made to be horrible, horrible people. So when they do get killed, you're like, oh, I'm glad she's dead.
Yeah.
What a
Or I
bitch.
don't care.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm just to see how they die.
he was a creep. I'm glad he's been killed. But
And if you didn't care about them, then Halloween wouldn't be as effective as it is. But because you don't want anything to happen to them, that's why you get so involved in it.
I think this is where the slow, methodical pace of the film helps, because you spend more time with the characters, you feel their plight, you feel the struggle, and you get to know them as well.
Yeah.
Even their foibles. They're not perfect characters, of course. Like, they're not the perfect people, but that's what makes them more interesting.
But they're likeable.
One's the cheerleader, one's the sarky bitch, one is the good girl, and that's kind of qualities of everybody's personality. I know I'm all three.
And I'm not.
You get a very strong sense that they are very good friends to each other.
Yes.
Even though, there are points in the movie where Nancy Loomis's character is quite manipulative of Laurie, isn't she? She's like, I've told Ben Tramer you'll go to the prom with him, so you've got to babysit Lindsay so I can have sex.
I spilled butter all over my clothes there in the wash. I got stuck in the water. I'll tell you something. I'd like you to call Ben Tramer and tell him that you were just fooling around.
I can't.
Yes, you can.
No, he went drinking with Mike Godfrey and he won't be back till late. You'll have to call him tomorrow. Besides, I'm on my way to pick up Paul.
Wait a minute.
If you watch her, I'll consider talking to Ben Tramer in the morning.
Deal.
But I always think Nancy Loomis is doing that because she really wants Jamie Lee to go out with Ben Tramer. She wants actors to go out with somebody, so she's kind of doing it for her as well.
That's a really good point, actually. It's strange. I love all those characters and those actors. Some of the actors, not Jamie Lee Curtis usually, the others get flack sometimes.
Right.
And I do think that the movie is not hyper-realistic, naturalistic. It's not like a slice of life. The way that the characters interact doesn't feel as realistic as something like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre or something.
No, probably not.
But I do think that it feels like a kind of campfire tale where you know who all the characters are and you care about them.
True.
And that's the purity of it.
Yeah, it's a heightened reality, I think. It's not too far from the realism that we crave, that we want.
The place for me where the cracks show is the small bit part characters who are dubbed not very well. Like the man playing Laurie's father at the very start of the film, who you never see again, and he comes out and goes, "Don't forget to drop the key off at the Myers place," and you can kind of tell that it's not his voice.
It's somebody else's.
And also the school teacher in the otherwise great scene.
And the book ends. But what Samuels is really talking about here is fate. You see, fate caught up with several lives here.
Even the Myers sister and her boyfriend at the start, they're dubbed pretty terribly as well.
And you kind of get away with it because they're far away from the camera.
But another thing about that point of view shot is the time it takes for them to run. They're like, let's go upstairs.
Oh,
They
yeah.
go upstairs. By the time it takes a full minute, they have sex in 1 minute. They manage to get upstairs, unclothed, and have sex.
And what's wrong with that?
I'm just like, well, I mean, 30 seconds getting upstairs. 30 seconds. Yeah, it's.
They had a cigarette afterwards as well.
And she was like, "When you coming back?" I was like, "Yeah, whenever, baby."
Don't bother.
He's off.
Yeah.
But I think with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, with that, I think it's more. That feels more like a smut film. It feels like someone's there with the camera and it's just happening. You're like, shit.
There's a voyeuristic sense
Yes.
to it. And actually, the voyeuristic thing has been applied to Halloween by critics over the years. I mean, specifically, you've got obviously the point of view shots from Michael Myers' point of view as he is stalking, killing people, and this kind of is supposed to make the audience complicit in the murders and things like that. I've never found it like that.
No, neither have I.
I think the movie is too fun for that. And this is just, it's a really efficient way of telling the story.
I feel that's probably people going, in the time going, video games make people murder. This is movies make people murder. It's just another kind of excuse.
People who say that seeing things from Michael Myers' point of view is kind of like voyeuristic and you're sympathising with him, are the kind of people who don't like horror films and are wanting a way to criticise them, finding a way to criticise them. It's all this stuff about horror films make people murderers. It's complete nonsense. We all know that. Yes, it is, and it's never once been proved by anybody that any violent act has been caused by it.
I mean, I'll agree and disagree at the same time. I'm sure that there are some people who may be teetering already.
But they're teetering already.
I think they're already in that mindset. They're already having a problem mentally, and then yes, they might be inspired by it, but a regular sane person would not be.
No. I mean, I suppose what I'm just saying is I don't think we should use that argument to absolve filmmakers of responsibility for what they do, not for other people's actions.
Of course,
you've always got to be thoughtful about what you create.
Yeah, of course.
But I don't, and I actually think when people talk like that about Halloween, it might not just be from the position of I hate horror movies and I want to blame them for things. It might be from a position of I actually don't like horror movies, but I really did like this one. I enjoyed it, so therefore I've got to find a way to intellectualise value into it.
Yes.
Because just saying, "Oh, that was great fun," and I was really scared, makes me feel silly.
For me, that argument, the voyeuristic side of it, kind of falls apart because in the script, he's purely known as the Shape.
Yes.
He's an inhuman, unstoppable killing machine. You're not necessarily supposed to relate to him. I think that came later in the filming where they added the childlike aspect, just to give him just enough character that we know it's so it feels real. But he's a presence. He's pure evil.
Yes,
Luna says he's just evil, and I think that's maybe possibly. Because the more the films have gone on, the more they've kind of added to his backstory, his motivation, and given him more human motivations. I think that kind of loses a little something. A little bit of the magic.
I think Michael Myers in the sequels diminishes Michael Myers in the first film. You just don't know really what he is, and that's what's so fascinating. You don't know what he is or why is he pure evil or what is he, and how was he able to drive a car if he's never driven one before, and how was he able to do all these things, and how was he able?
He was doing pretty well last night.
The great line.
Getting lessons.
Something that the Halloween series, not just this first film but others too, has a great line in is fantastic one-liners that dismiss plot holes. And that's something that you need in B-movies, I think.
That's a podcast all in itself.
You may think they scare me, you're probably right. Black cats and goblins on Halloween night. Trick or treat!
We're just assuming in this podcast that everybody listening has seen the film. And I'm sure that they probably have.
Yeah.
And if you haven't, we probably are spoiling bits of it, but you probably don't mind, because if you can't
spoilers
who's interested in listening to the podcast. Yes, but everything is new to
True.
But in terms of the kind of voyeuristic camera work that we were discussing, I think it's an indication of what a good director Carpenter is. And you know what? That was my first impression of it. When I first saw it in UK Gold Screen, it was the first. I already liked horror films, but it was the first horror film I saw, which made me realise that horror films can be interesting from a directorial point of view. Because I was a film fan, I wanted to be a director, but I hadn't really thought about the idea of making horror movies until I saw Halloween and I saw what he could do with the camera to enhance the story. And as we all know, the movie starts with the 10-year-old Michael Myers killing his sister.
I think so. I think around maybe 6.
He's about 6 years old.
Oh, is he 6? That's right. And the reason you see the whole scene from his point of view is to create a wonderful reveal at the end of the sequence.
Exactly,
which is, oh my god, this knife-wielding killer is actually a child. If they hadn't shot it like that and you knew it was a child from the start, it might have been interesting, but it wouldn't have been as powerful, I think.
No.
And I think there is an ingenuity to Carpenter's direction, just realising what can be done with the minimal resources that they had. It really was minimal. The budget for this movie was $325,000.
And the $25,000 was for Donald Pleasence.
And thoroughly earned as well. Thoroughly deserved.
Absolutely. And for Donald Pleasence and his trade. For instance, I mentioned that he had a couple of conditions. Something else that he kind of insisted on, which what probably wasn't at all standard for low-budget movies, was Panaglide, which is the Panavision equivalent of the Steadicam, which resulted in these wonderful flowing
shots,
kind of ethereal camera shots, which is perfect for the point of view. And I think not only the point of view, but there's so many great over-the-shoulder shots in this movie. You know, the shot where Laurie's walking down the street singing a song, which I wonder if Jamie Lee Curtis just made up, because they probably couldn't afford the right to any actual song.
I wish I had you all alone, just the two of us.
And Michael Myers is just watching him, and you just see him in the side of the frame. You just see his shoulder on the side of his head. That's just such a great shot. And so imaginative. And the whole movie is kind of lensed with that kind of visual flair. I think it just speaks to his brilliance as a director. And I also should say, you know, that might not be entirely just down to him. I'm sure that a great part of that was Dean Cundy, the director of photography as well, who'd never worked with Carpenter before, but they obviously had a meeting of minds. I mean, he is one of the great Hollywood cinematographers now, if you look back, because he went on to do so many movies that were visually daring. Back to the Future, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Jurassic Park. You know, he virtually pioneered the technique, which must be so bizarre as a director of photography, of shooting movies in which major characters are just not there. They're going to be animated later, or they'll be added in later, and all that kind of stuff. And all
precursor to your CGI stuff.
Yeah, I mean, now that's every director of photography's job.
Don't fear the reaper, nor do the wind, the sun, or the rain. We can be like they are. Come on, baby, don't fear the reaper. Baby, take my hand, don't fear the reaper. We'll be able to fly, don't fear the reaper. Baby, I'm your man. La 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 la.
I'm just going to interrupt the flow of our discussion here because we've had a very happy arrival, the wonderful Steve Timms, who's going to be our second special guest for this particular podcast, and he's going to be coming back to discuss later films in the series as well. Hello, Steve.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Hello, Steve.
Hello.
Greetings.
Welcome to the show, sir.
We first ever podcast this, so I don't really know what to expect. Well, thanks for asking me.
What I asked Howard and Dan at the start of the podcast was how they first encountered this movie and what their connection to the series of Halloween is, and also just to tell the listeners a little bit about themselves. So can I ask the same question to you, please, Steve?
Well, I'm a professional daydreamer who kind of writes film reviews for a website called Storgy.
Oh, fantastic.
I'm just a mine of useless trivia.
That's what we want to hear. So tell us about how you first encountered Halloween.
Well, I mean, I think I probably wasn't old enough to see it. I mean, God, this is the year of the X certificate, isn't it? The 1970s. Even just seeing that X on a film poster scared me. It just looked so like scary. Like, oh my God, what, an X?
Right. So did you see the movie at the cinema?
Well, I would have been too young to see it when it came out, but I remember watching Barry Norman review it and thinking, God, that looks really freaky. And I think it was out at the same time as this film with Anthony Hopkins where he played sort of a mad ventriloquist.
Magic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, what a film.
So that was on like the same film on the 78 episode.
Actually, I remember that, you know. I remember it being... Now, I'd be very young. And I don't know why I was watching film 78 it would be then, because it's, you know, I don't know why I'd be up that late. But I do remember they're talking about Halloween, or at least I think I remember. And the scene they showed because of it was where he kills the dog. where he's standing outside.
Yes.
And I'm sure that's a scene, and I had no idea what this film was about, and I didn't know until years later. But I do remember it being on film, so it might have made an impression then. You got in your head, wow, that looks scary.
And you started killing small
And I
animals
started
from then on.
dogs and worked my way out to rhinoceroses. No, it's all fun.
So how did you eventually see it, Steve?
I think when it was on it came out on VHS, which must have been like the early 80s, a friend of mine said, you've got to watch this film. And we did actually watch it at my house in Oldham on Halloween. And I was kind of really freaked out. It really disturbed me, I think. I think it was the Steadicam shots was something I've not really seen before. This idea that the camera is the killer, was really... that kind of puts you right in the film, really, and it just... I don't really know that. I mean, how new that technology was at the time. I'm guessing it was very new. Really.
It was pretty new. I mean, the Steadicam is in like Rocky, a few earlier films.
Yeah.
You know, the famous scene where Rocky runs up the steps is a Steadicam shot. But it was pretty new, and Carpenter, I think, was very forward-thinking in kind of insisting that they had that because it wasn't a standard thing. And I think Carpenter saw potential in it to use it to its fullest for this film. It's great that you said that because that's kind of exactly the point that we'd got to, Steve, in terms of talking about those shots in the movie.
It's the first scene where the first murder, and you kind of hear the knife attacking. It's the sister, isn't it, of Michael Myers. Then the twist within the first 5 minutes that the killer is actually a child. I thought that was just shocking, really. It just really unnerved me.
What's interesting about that sequence is you hear the knife going in, but you don't see it.
Yes.
Because it's obscured by the mask. And that's what Halloween is all about. It's not about seeing the knife going into the body. It's not about that. It's not that sort of film. It's all about what's in your imagination.
I tell you what, I remember when I first saw it, as I explained earlier, Steve, to these guys, I first saw it on a UK Gold screening in the late 90s. The interesting thing was I keep going on about the use of widescreen in the frame. It was obviously cropped for TV.
On pan and scan.
Pan and scan in those days. But it still worked.
Yeah.
It's so good. I didn't actually see it in widescreen until I was at uni some years later, and we had to watch it early on the course. It was one of those movies we had to watch on the big screen. But it still worked incredibly well, and you could still... The visual choices that Carpenter made still was so powerful. And I think that... the reveal of the child as the killer at the start is a shocking reveal, and it's all the more powerful because it's done so visually, because you've seen everything from his point of view, and then suddenly at the last minute you see him. Yeah. I mean, I think, Dan, you watched the Making of documentary.
I did,
I think it might be in that. There's obviously several documentaries made about
I think it's
it.
behind something, I think it's called, or something. I can't remember.
Anyway, certainly there's something I watched recently where people kind of pointed out that shot where it's revealed that the kid is really chilling, but it's kind of apparent that the parents are just standing there. Yeah. They don't do anything, especially the mum. She kind of looks like she's not really bothered. She's sort of standing there holding her hand back. But
but I think that works because that's just like a tableau, and that sets the idea that this is not realistic.
True.
Yeah.
True.
The camera just pulls back, and the shock of what you've just seen is allowed to sink in. And they do just stand there, and perhaps it does look a bit weird, but then you can understand why.
But no, it's kind of designed. The camera pulls back in this eerie, floating way, and it is a powerful tableau, and you're just supposed to look at the still image, and the way the music goes. Like that.
Well, if you're talking about why Halloween is such a great film, you have to talk about the music.
Of course,
the music is brilliant.
Of course we do, and we will.
All right, we'll talk about that later on.
I want to go into a certain order. Something else I want to say though is that on my very first viewing, something that I remember feeling in the first scene is when he stabs his sister to death for no reason whatsoever. He does not look at his sister, he looks at his hand. And obviously that's because if he didn't do that, the audience probably couldn't really tell what was supposed to be happening. Yeah. And I just remember thinking, fine, I understand. Yeah. You know, it's a movie. The next thing I'd like to talk about, and we've already kind of touched on it, but just how important Jamie Lee Curtis is to the movie, I think. I mean, I feel like, I think it's Kim Newman who says that it's a misinterpretation that the movie Halloween is about Michael Myers. It's not. It's about Laurie. And I think you can kind of tell that because if you locked off the first two scenes, which we've just discussed, the killing of the sister in the flashback, and then the escape from the asylum, you could actually start the movie when Laurie comes out of the house.
Yeah.
It's all about Laurie. And in a weird way, if you did that, you wouldn't necessarily know it was a horror movie straight away. Yeah. But I think you'd get into it because the way that she interacts with Tommy, the little boy, is so engrossing. You think, oh, this is a fun drama about a babysitter. You know, that bit where she walks along the road and he's saying, can we watch the monster movies? Can we make jack-o'-lanterns? And she, you know, it's so nice. And I remember I showed this movie to my nephew, who was about 11 or something. And he, to be honest, he didn't really get it. And he didn't really like horror movies. No. But I remember him watching that scene and he just said, she's a nice lady. And I think, she's so engaging.
Tommy, Halloween night, it's when people play tricks on each other. It's all make-believe. I think Richie was just trying to scare you.
I saw the boogeyman. I saw him outside.
There was nobody outside.
There was.
What did he look like?
The boogeyman.
We're not getting anywhere. All right. The boogeyman can only come out on Halloween night, right?
Right.
Well, I'm here tonight. I'm not about to let anything happen to you.
Promise?
Promise.
I mean, she is the nice girl, she's the good girl, but she brings something else to it as well.
Yes.
She's not blandly sort of. She has a personality.
A lesser actress would
Yeah.
have just done what was required, but she really does.
Yeah, she just brings something extra to it. She can be a little bit sarky as well, and she can be a little bit sort of a tarantula man.
Yeah.
Was it Neutron man? And kind of like, and you can understand when she's sort of like kind of doing things with the kids. There's that slight sense of, God, I wish I was doing something. You know, I'm a bit bored here looking after these kids. I wish I was somewhere else.
Yeah, she goes. I think she sees them. You know, the cheerleader having sex with her boyfriend. Not actually, but they go into the house, and she's like, everyone's having fun.
Yeah.
And then the kid. If I was the kids, I'd be like, fuck you. They are having fun.
So yeah, she brings something. She's just a great actress. She's a really good actress. That's what it is. And she is appealing and.
Well, she's had a great career since. This was her big break, and that's
And she wasn't first choice. She wasn't first choice. An actress called Anne Lockhart was the first choice.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Anne Lockhart never really. She's been in Murder, She Wrote about 20 times. Yeah. And so was everybody.
Yeah.
Every actor in America's been in it. And she doesn't have the same. I've seen she's a perfectly competent actress, but she doesn't have that star quality.
Yeah. Something about
thing that Jamie Lee Curtis has.
And it's
how old was Jamie Lee Curtis when she made that?
She's about 20, wasn't she?
I think she was 19 or 20.
Yeah, late teens, I think.
I remember seeing her in. I'm ashamed to admit that I've recently watched repeats of Buck Rogers in the 25th century.
That is something to be ashamed of.
It's a guilty pleasure, but she was in an episode of that, and I remember her in this TV show called The Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew. So she was like a jobbing actress, as a teenager.
But as a Columbo fan, I have to mention she's a waitress in Columbo.
Oh, is she?
And she's brilliant. She says her 2 lines perfectly.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
I mean, this was her first major. Well, this was her first film introducing Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie. It says in the titles. She'd done a bit of TV beforehand, and I think Carpenter and Hill were pretty upfront about the fact that they knew she was Janet Leigh's daughter, and it was a publicity angle. Owen Yablan's the executive producer, knew that as well, and he says in one of the documentaries, you can't buy that kind of publicity. and
of course, there's the Psycho connection, isn't there? Really?
Yeah, that's right. And she knew that. At the same time, they realised, I think, gradually that she's really good.
Yeah.
Apparently, after the first day's filming, John Carpenter rang her up personally to say thank you so much. You're great. And she thought she was terrible and she thought he was going to fire her. But I think she is such a strong centre to the movie, and it's weird that later on she became such a big movie star, like a mainstream star, and she cut her hair. So in a way, the later Jamie Lee Curtis almost seems like a different person to me.
Almost, yeah, I guess.
But I love that this is where she started, and she's never been ashamed of that.
No, she never has. In fact, she said in all those, because she was in a few horror films. She's in Terror Train and prom night and things like that. And she always says, in those films I was always strong and independent. And it's only in the later films I had to take all my clothes off and play the bimbo and stuff. In the horror films I was always playing strong characters, and she's certainly a strong character in that.
I think that's kind of where some of the horror, like Halloween invented some of the horror tropes, like for good or for bad. I think one of them is the being a virgin means you survive.
This is something I want to talk about, because I think that's nonsense.
Yeah.
The idea that that's the kind of reactionary conservative thing going on, that if you have sex you get punished for it.
Yeah, it's like...
Well, no, because the person doing the punishing is a homicidal maniac.
Yeah.
Surely you're not saying what he's doing is right or anything like that. And also, he's trying to kill Jamie Lee Curtis. If Jamie Lee Curtis in the film was a virgin or not, he's trying to kill her.
Yeah.
So, and also, we don't actually know that she is a virgin. No. It's not actually said. So all of these things, sort of, that is again, that might apply to later films, I don't know, but it's not something you can apply to this film.
Friday Night, I think it's almost explicit with the further the Friday the 13th films go on. It's almost like, if you have weed, smoke some weed, get drunk and have sex at this camp, you're going to die. But it almost becomes a parody of itself towards the end.
And I think people have sex just so they can have a sex scene in it. It's a bit of a, it's a nudity.
See anything you like?
And also PJ Souls was an established, not star, but she was a known.
She was in Carrie, wasn't
and she was gorgeous. And
what else has she been in? I've
she's
not seen her in much else.
Apart
she's
from
in film with the Ramones, wasn't she? Then?
Oh yeah,
Rock and Roll High School.
Yeah,
that's that.
Oh well, you know more than me, to be honest. I only know her from this and Carrie, and later on she turns up on a lot of documentaries about Halloween. She narrates some of them. But
totally,
yeah, but I still think
no, she is very good in that role.
And you know.
And Nancy Loomis, despite being the oldest teenager in town, I think she's
she's
still,
it's like Riz. It's like Riz.
Well, you know, elderly teenagers in movies.
Yeah, well, you know,
that's true. I heard a story. I read a little. I was on the IMDb and just reading a few facts. And one of the facts was PJ Souls was in a cinema screening for Halloween. And the line comes up going, "See anything you like?" And some guy went, "Hell yes I do!" And she was with a boyfriend, and her boyfriend at the time was Dennis Quaid.
Oh, right.
Good heavens!
Yes, believe it or not. And he was like, "Do you want me to talk to him?" And she was like, "No, it's hilarious."
She knows what she's doing. And she's quite open in the making of documentary about how Carpenter was quite tentative in saying, you know, would you mind taking your top off in this scene? And she's like, no, of course I won't mind. What are you talking about? I know what I'm here for.
Yeah.
So
and even then, it's not gratuitous though. It's not. It's like there's like half a nipple here and that. It's not blatant. Here's all of my breasts. It's kind of it's sheepishly and playful and you know sensitive to a point. Yeah. And then she's brutally murdered.
Yeah. Well, she's not brutally murdered.
No,
that's the thing. She just gets strangled with a not very tight telephone wire. As you can see, is not actually. Again, it's not about. That's why I say it's not about the killing. He just kills her because he's done his job. He's done his thing when he's got his sheet on, and now he just has to get rid of her because that's what he.
Well, I think this is where the Hitchcock connection comes in. Like we look at things like you could argue maybe even Psycho is a slasher movie, if you will. But again, with that, you don't see the penetration of the knife. You don't see blood really. Well, you just obviously see some blood. It's not like spurting out of them or anything. Nothing gratuitous like later slasher movies. But it's so artistically done. But it's in the shots as well, in the cinematography. I think they also mentioned Chinatown as a inspiration of the cinematography because again, that's very much like everything's nice and sunny. It's got this lovely kind of Rockwellian veneer, but underneath is this seedy underbelly of some dark forces at work, which is very much what the film has.
And one thing that really struck me when I first saw it, and I think there are still very few movies which follow it, horror movies that do this, is that so much of it is set in daylight and looks so nice and peaceful and tranquil. And that's where the suspense is. And I think Carpenter, in an interview with Clive Barker's A to Z of Horror, which was a great late 90s horror retrospective TV show, which I remember enjoying a lot, he did kind of explain that and said that he realised that if you can make the audience scared when everything looks nice and safe and bright, and then you turn out the lights, they're going to be so much more scared, and that was brilliant. I mean, I think Carpenter's fantastic quote was, "Then you can create fear." Lots of fear.
Well, it is. I mean, all the stuff in the daylight is just him following people around.
Yeah.
At one point, he follows a little boy around.
Yeah.
They trip him over, and he squashes his pumpkin, and he's walking full on the way. And Michael Myers gets in the car and just follows him round. Doesn't do anything.
No.
He just follows him round.
He grabs one of the bullies and
he
it's like boom, and the kid's absolutely shits himself.
And I love the fact that for the whole film, really, I mean, we talked about the fact that Michael Myers is an interesting character because you don't know what he's about. And you don't really know why he's... I mean, you know that he's obviously... he's got a homicidal past and da-da-da. But why is he following these particular people? You know, the only connection really with Tommy and Laurie... I know that later sequels invent other reasons, but they happen to come up to his house at the start of the movie.
Yeah.
And he sees them, and that's it.
But I was wondering if it's the bit, you know, where he's driving along and Super says, "Hey jerk, speed kills," and he stops.
Yeah.
Thought, right, is that the scene where he thinks, right, I'm going to get those people. They're having a go at me, so I'm going to...
I kind of see, when it comes to Tommy, I kind of see he's, like we were saying earlier, there is this childlike quality to Michael. I think he wants a playmate.
Yeah.
To some degree, the actors that play the actor who plays Michael, the young Michael and Tommy, don't look that dissimilar.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah.
I think maybe he sees himself there, and he's like, because he still has that childlike mentality. I think he's like, oh yeah, you know, why don't we play? And this is how I play. Do you want to, you know, are you into this?
I play with knives.
I play with big blades and killing babysitters. You know, so I think that's how I see it. But yeah, you could invent. That's what's great about it. It's so obscure and vague.
Well, that's it. The thing is, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's one of the things about Michael Myers. In the first film,
you never know.
When the first film was made, it was the only one. They didn't know there was going to be any others, so it's only what happens in that first film. In the first film, I don't know why Michael Myers does what he does. I don't know if he's evil, or if he's just mad, or what, or is he some kind of supernatural force. I don't know. That's what's so great about it. I don't know. I don't know why he's doing these things.
I think Barry Norman said in one of his reviews that Carpenter frightens you not with what happens so much as with what might happen.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
There's a great scene where you know P.J. Charles has been killed and she's been on the phone and just been and Jamie Lee Curtis walks slowly across from one house to the other house, and it's a long, slow scene, and all the time while she's walking up to it, you think, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's she going to find in there? We don't know. We don't know where the dead bodies are or anything like that, or what's happened to them. And it's so kind of agonisingly slow because you think, and all the time your unease is building up as she's
all
walking
you know
across.
is, I find that sequence so frightening and so moving in a strange way, because all you know is that she should not go in there.
No.
And that something bad will happen if she does, and she doesn't realise that she's going into the lion's den. And I just feel, and she's so brave because she's only going over there because her friend, she doesn't want to get to her friend, and she's concerned, but she doesn't know that she's actually going into mortal peril. And I just think that's a brilliant sequence. Also, the other thing about the murder of P.J. Souls, which I was going to mention before we move on, is that the actual, like you're saying, Howard, the actual murder, the killing.
Where she's wearing a pair of glasses over that sheet.
That's right,
It does remind me very Morecambe. That's
when he goes like that.
I mean, does Michael Myers have a sense of humour? Is he having a jape there, a jolly
That's
jape?
what we think.
That's what we think, yes. It's his sense of humour. He's got a rather strange sense of
like
humour.
pranks and tricks and
it's
tricks.
Halloween night. He's playing Halloween tricks on people. This idea of trick or treat.
Well, yeah, how else would you get around in daylight wearing a mask?
Yeah.
How you know, without, you know, just people not going, he's a fucking weirdo.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, look, that's Captain Kirk.
Oh,
William Shatner looking very pale.
I think perhaps this is maybe the point to discuss the mask, actually.
Well, apparently the mask they used was a William Shatner Captain Kirk mask, which was turned inside out and painted white, I believe.
So
this is the face of Michael Myers, really, but...
And yes, that is apparently the case, because they had so little money, they just went to a Halloween shop, and the production designer Tommy Wallace just bought whatever was there, and they tried each one and decided that Shatner was the scariest. I
can understand that.
There is a theory that actually the reason, Because I know that they took the William Shatner Kirk mask and they painted it and they cut out the eyes and they did things to it to make it creepier. But even if they hadn't done that, it probably was quite a morose expression. You can just kind of tell.
It was still pretty creepy before the changes.
But there is a theory that actually maybe that mask was taken from a mould of Shatner made for the film The Devil's Reign.
Where oh my God, I've seen that.
I'm quite a fan of
film.
Well, I don't know. I think they were powerful.
Any film with Ernest Borgnine as the devil has got to be worth watching.
Yeah. And that film actually had John Travolta in it.
John Travolta and Anton LaVey, Chief Minister of the Church of Satan. And when you've got that in your credits, you know.
Wow.
But no, Shatner plays a satanic cultist who melts at the end of the film. All the satanic cultists melt.
Of course.
So there was obviously plaster casts of all the actors' faces were made, and the company who did that was Don Post Masks, who then made Halloween masks.
Right.
So they reckon it was. They thought, we want to make a Captain Kirk mask. Shall we get Shatner in to do a No, we've got this one here.
This'll do.
He's playing a depressed, self-hating Satanist, but we'll just use it.
But they're obviously very ambitious. They thought the film was going to be such a big smash that people would want to buy masks of the Devil's Reign characters.
I think
kids will love it.
I think Bob Hughes, the director of the Devil's Reign, probably wishes that had been the case, or rather, he did before he passed on. Okay, so we've got this far talking to the movie, and we've not really discussed Donald Pleasence and the importance of the character of Dr. Loomis. I mean, I said a minute ago that the movie's not about Michael; it's about Laurie, and I think that's true. But weirdly, Dr. Loomis is the star of the movie. Donald Pleasence is the guy who gets his name above the title. Yeah. It's kind of fairly well known that he was not the first choice for the role.
Yeah, I think there was several kind of big name.
Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee were both offered it. Peter Cushing didn't want to leave Britain. He didn't like leaving Britain to film.
Well, weirdly, we obviously myself and Howard talk about Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee films in our other podcast, and the last film we discussed was Star Wars, which was Cushing's immediate film prior to this. And John Galt says apparently when they offered the role to Cushing's agent says, no, since Star Wars, Peter Cushing is starring in movies now. They want to make movies about him. He's not just going to be in a movie. I just think that agent was such an idiot. Yeah. Although I can understand that on paper, the role of Dr. Loomis possibly didn't look like much. I think that when you watch the movie, it is a co-starring thing between Donald Pleasence and Jamie Lee Curtis. I think it's almost like two movies. Yes. They never really meet, and you switch between one and the other kind of throughout. But I think that he carries his scenes kind of wonderfully.
Well, I was going to say, Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee were the first choices. I think they're both great actors, but I'm glad they turned it down. Yeah. Because Donald Pleasence is perfect for this.
I think it might have been too like they kind of created a new genre, a new style of American horror. Yeah. I think it would almost be like they would, that's that old gothic English, which is just as good, just as great, just as important. But I think that would have muddied the film's kind of feel.
It's not really their thing. Certainly not Peter Cushing's thing. He would have been out of his depth, I think. And also, Peter Cushing is such a reasonable. Donald Pleasence brings a kind of neurotic thing. He's sort of, when the sheriff's talking to him,
he's quite nervous anyway.
It's the eyes.
Donald Pleasence always has that slightly twitchy quality that sort of brings. And so when the sheriff's talking to him, saying, "Oh, evil, there's a madman," you sort of go, "Well, I don't know whether I believe you." If Peter Cushing said it, you'd believe it. If Christopher Lee said it, you'd believe it. Donald Pleasence says it, it's like, I don't know. Are you the madman kind of thing?
Well, I think that's the good thing. Is he is just as mad in some ways. He's
sort of obsessive.
Yeah, obsessive. This is the white Ahab and the white whale, isn't it? Yeah. It's kind of like he has to stop this unstoppable evil, and even in that last scene where he's like, he get the shape or Michael gets up and he kind of knows it's going to happen. He kind of expects it to happen. And it's brilliant, and all of his scenes are just great.
Yeah, he's a brilliant actor.
Somehow he knew, he was able to divine from many years ago that Michael Myers was no longer just a human being, it was something else. And obviously that's not a skill that you get taught when you're in medical school.
No, he's the worst psychiatrist. He goes, I've tried to help him for 8 years. But then I realised he's pure evil.
Yeah, so it only took 8 years of it.
And I think it was Kim Newman who said that, you know, obviously, in psychological terms, everything Dr. Loomis says is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I have friends who are like counsellors and have watched it and just not got it because it seems like such a stupid version of their
in mental health terms, it's very backwards.
but it's brilliant in terms of setting up villainous character. And in terms of Donald Pleasence's casting, Gambit wanted Cushing and Lee because he was a fan of the Hammer films. Yes. It was Irwin Yablans who suggested Donald Pleasence. And Donald Pleasence has a connection to British horror. Obviously, he is British, and he was in some of those kind of movies. There is a movie with him and Peter Cushing called The Flesh and the Fiends.
Okay.
But he was never really. He was only in one Hammer film, and it's not a horror film.
Have you seen him in Dario Argento's Phenomena?
No.
Which is a horror film and apparently the role was actually offered to Orson Welles.
Really?
But he actually dropped out due to ill health, so Donald Pleasence got that again by default, really.
Right.
But he's brilliant playing.
Everyone's favourite second choice.
He plays an entomologist who studies insects, and he has this. He's in a wheelchair. And he's got a pet chimpanzee who. He's like his care assistant. It's like so weird.
Okay.
Like the monkey pushes him around in this wheelchair. But again, that is a film about a serial killer.
When was that made?
That was about 1986.
Right.
That's worth checking out. It's a bonkers film. But again, he's brilliant in that. And when his character goes like about halfway through, the film kind of takes a bit of a nosedive. His presence is kind of missed.
Right.
And,
Donald Pleasence is a very modern horror star. He's not a period horror star. Peter Cushing just
Look
like
at the
all the
looks
others
of
horror
horror
star.
star.
They're in period costume. They do Dracula, Frankenstein. Well, Donald Pleasence is a very modern, urban kind of horror star. He fits into Halloween, the world of Halloween, much better than any of the other horror stars would, I think.
Wasn't he in one of those Amicus anthology films?
Yes, he's in he's in the last Amicus.
Yeah, the one with a match seller or something.
Yeah, he's in that, and yes.
In the movie which is called Howard.
Hey?
What's the movie called?
From Beyond the Grave.
Yes, 1974.
Right.
Yeah.
The Diner Doors.
Yes, I remember
David Warner.
that one.
Yeah, it's
great. I do like David Warner. I do like.
Yeah,
him.
he's
he's
the
horror star,
last
isn't he?
great living horror star.
Yeah. See, David Warner could have played. I don't think anyone else could have played Dr. Loomis, but I can imagine sort of David Warner
I could
doing
see
that if Donald Pleasence hadn't won.
Well, again, David Warner, he's like Pleasence. He is a modern horror star, but he has a connection to the old classic horror. He was in that movie, which Peter Cushing is in, but he was also like 3 years later in The Omen. You know, he's like the perfect crossover.
He's of that. Donald Pleasence seems of a different generation, even though he's more or less the same age as him. He seems of a different generation. He's 70s, 80s horror, not 50s, 60s. horror.
But weirdly, when Cushing and Lee had turned it down and Yablans suggested Pleasence, the thing that made him suggest Pleasence was that he remembered Donald Pleasence from a movie called Will Penny, which is a western with Charlton Heston. And I watched it the other day, and Donald Pleasence is terrifying in it as a kind of mad preacher. He's called Preacher Quint. And that movie, it's kind of quite moving and gentle and realistic, except for the bits with Pleasence in, because he plays a character who's totally evil for no reason. And he's just so scary and so mad. And he does a voice which is not unlike the one that he does in Halloween. And what I want to bring up now is the question of Donald Pleasence's accent in this and other movies. Because I've always taken it that he's playing Dr. Loomis as an American, because it's an American film, an American subject. And also, he seems to be doing the same voice which he does as the American president in John Carpenter's Escape from New York.
You're the Duke, #1.
Absolutely. But a lot of American Halloween fans don't get it. They think he's English. My friend Gareth, who I think most of us know, I had this conversation with him, and he always thought Dr. Loomis was meant to be English. And I said, no, he's meant to be American. And Gareth went, oh, well, it's a bad accent. But weirdly, I've heard American film reviewers talk about The Silence of the Lambs, and they think that Hannibal Lecter is meant to be English as well. Whereas to us, Anthony Hopkins is going, the lambs are screaming or whatever,
Yeah.
you know. And it feels like a really overdone accent. But maybe that's part of the English arrogance.
Yeah.
English actors think they're great at accents, and Americans are all Dick Van Dyke.
Yeah.
But maybe that's not so.
So nobody's any good at accents, really.
What do you guys think
Well,
about...
apparently Jason Statham has made 40 films, and he's never once attempted an accent other than his own.
No. I have seen Jet Li's The One, and it has
Oh.
the worst American accent
Well,
I've ever heard.
director, Frank
Yeah.
Ocean.
So-
Really?
From Jason Statham.
From Jason Statham.
That's the only film he's done in an American
Yeah,
accent.
that I know of.
Is
But
it really
yeah,
bad?
I think it was that bad that he hasn't attempted it
Oh
since.
my God.
Because it's just.
I've got to see that now.
Well, no, I've always assumed Dr. Loomis is American, but I know Donald Pleasence is English, and he's slightly struggling with his American accent. But I just accept that as what it is. A lot of actors struggle with.
I thought his accent was fine. I
It didn't bother. He's an educated American. Perhaps he studied in Britain for a while.
Well, it's weird that because Howard, you're the Columbo fan here.
Yeah.
And of course, Donald Pleasence is the villain in a great Columbo episode, and he
Is that
sort
the
of.
wine episode? Is he a wine?
He's,
Yes.
Yeah, he's a, yes, yeah. He kills his brother.
He's kind of doing the American accent in that, but they kind of written into the scripts that his character was meant to be half English, so
Lived
they
in
get
England or
away
something,
with
yeah.
it. But you know, that's the one where he goes, "They don't make good wine. They don't even make good mouthwash."
This liquid filth.
I mean, what I think about Pleasance's accent in all of these things is that I don't know how accurate it is. I don't even really know where the character's meant to be from.
Yeah.
They're sort of... It's vaguely kind of Southern American, it seems to be the voice that he does.
Yeah.
But I think it never stops you believing in the character.
Yeah.
No.
You know, with some actors and they're trying an accent, they're so busy doing the accent that the performance is very good.
I mean,
But-
look at Al Pacino in Scarface. His accent is all over the place.
Oh, okay.
But you buy into him as this, you know, ex-Cuban, you know, drug lord that's kind of made it up and built himself up. Like you never stop believing the performance. Yeah, the accent comes and goes, but you're still invested in his rise and, you know, snorting of cocaine and getting out with his little friend.
Say hello to my little friend.
You know, I've never seen Scarface. I really must.
It's one to watch.
It's kind of unhinged, isn't it?
Yeah,
really?
it's a bit
Really?
mental. Yeah, it's a bit mental, but it's definitely one to watch.
Nice one.
If you're a good actor, you can get away with perhaps not an entirely convincing accent.
Well, there's the whole
Oh, Jesus.
Untouchables question, isn't it? I mean, Sean Connery won an Oscar for... There was no reason for them to say his character was an Irish beat cop.
Yeah.
Why bother with that?
Yeah.
Sean Connery, you know, can do anything in my book, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
why just make him Scottish? But they wrote that in.
Yeah.
He attempted an Irish accent for maybe the first 5 minutes, and
Yeah.
then just didn't bother after that.
He does one line in an Irish accent when he goes, "The Lord hates a coward."
But people just overlook that, didn't they? And say,
I've heard so many London actors do bad Northern
Yeah.
accents in TV
Yeah.
series and films over the years, and these things are just, it's not.
I think it's forgivable.
Yes.
I think it's a forgivable sin. You know.
I love it. I think it contributes to his slight strangeness.
Yeah.
Talk about Dr. Loomis.
I think he really does bring across like a very. I think he said to Carpenter, he's like, I don't want a past, I don't want an origin, I just want to be the character, be the presence, be the quote unquote angel to Mike Myers' devil, so to speak. But you can tell, like in his performance, he does seem like unhinged. Like he really seems, you know, a little bit, you know, tweaked.
I guess kind of worn down by years of trying to sort of cure this.
He's
psychopath,
so
really.
cynical about, you know, that's why he's such a bad psychiatrist.
I guess he feels that he's
So-
failed, doesn't he? He's
Yeah.
failed in his profession.
I think he
He's
says
not
he
managed to
tried.
help this person.
I think he says something like he tried 8 years to cure him, and then another 9 years making sure he was locked up.
Yeah.
So they were like, he's like, I don't want to get out.
A lot of paperwork there. That would make anybody go nuts, wouldn't it?
So, a little while ago, Howard, you mentioned the music to the film.
See, again, I talk about the simplicity of this film, and the music is a perfect example of that. That's just 4 notes. When you know the scene we were talking about, when she walks over from her house and she's going to the house and she's what's going to be. The music is doom, doom. How simple is that? 4 notes, and yet it's so doom-like. It's so effective. It's. John Carpenter's well been one of the best directors in the world at the time. He was also one of the best composers at the time. The music for Assault on Precinct 13 is brilliant. The music for The Fog is brilliant. Escape from New York is brilliant. And the music in this it adds to it. So like Psycho has got that very distinctive music. This. But it's just do. It's so kind of simple, and yet it works. So incredibly effective. I think it scares you before even the film started.
Even the opening thing is bomb bomb.
Yeah.
Bomb bomb. You know,
that is Morricone.
It's Morricone.
Oh, is it?
But
Sorry, my mistake.
Well, no, you're quite right, Dan, because although that score is by Morricone, it was Carpenter who said to him,
do my score.
I stood behind him. I would love to have been in the room on that conversation, because like you tell one of the best composers in the world to just go duh. But apparently that's what, or maybe possibly that bomb
maybe he wrote,
actually is Carpenter.
Yeah,
be surprised.
It
sounds like his own stuff. But just very simple.
Same with Jaws. The Jaws thing is very simple. So basic.
But what's unusual is that at that time that most film scores were orchestral based, and this is an electronic soundtrack, which is so. I mean, it's very common now, isn't it? But at the time, it just felt that was something completely new.
It's alien, isn't it? It's completely. It doesn't feel
it's
natural.
more tied into sort of like popular music of the period, really, rather than influenced by film soundtracks. The film soundtrack tradition, it seems influenced more like.
There's a
like
funkiness
Kraftwerk,
to it,
for example, or
it's upbeat. That's what struck me when I first watched the movie, was that it's so unusual for that theme tune to be kind of upbeat, and in 5/4 time, which gives it a very strange kind of feeling. And I think that it's not just the synthesizer sound, but the mixture of a real piano with the synthesizer, which was, I think, the contribution of the recording engineer Dan Wyman, who probably doesn't get enough credit because he worked with Carpenter on this score and The Fog and nothing else. And although I love all of Carpenter's scores and I love the ones done with other people, you can really tell the difference in Halloween and The Fog. Recently, there's a rather good American film critic who vlogs a lot on YouTube called Ruth Cornett, and she really recently declared that Halloween is the greatest score of all time. I'm not sure I would necessarily agree, but I think it might be the greatest minimalist score. It's basically 3 tracks. They wrote 3 very simple tunes, and they just repeat those throughout the film. There's the theme tune, there's the one that you mentioned, and then there's the tune that plays underneath Dr. Loomis's wonderful The Blackest Eyes, The Deadest Eyes.
I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up, because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
What do we do?
He's been here once tonight. I think he'll come back. I'm gonna wait for him.
I still think I should notify the radio and television.
No. If you do that, they'll see him in every street corner. They'll look for him in every house. Just tell your men to keep their mouths shut and their eyes open.
I'll check back in an hour.
So now I think we're coming to the end of our discussion about this movie, and the main thing that we've not really discussed appropriately is the ending of the film. I remember when I first watched it, as I kind of explained earlier, it wasn't my first Carpenter film. I'd seen The Thing and Escape from New York, and I kind of was getting hip to Carpenter's tendency to have ambiguous and or cynical endings. And I didn't necessarily love them, but I thought they were interesting. And at the end of the movie, it looks like basically Jamie Lee Curtis fights off Myers, and she repeatedly seems to kill him, and he always comes back. And I say Myers, I should say The Shape. I'm very clear that.
What's your opinion on the mask being removed for like a few seconds?
I think it's
You
brilliant.
see the real Michael Myers. You think that was a good thing to do?
I think that was needed for the end of the movie.
Yeah.
They replaced the actor, didn't they? Because they wanted a more quote unquote angelic face for Michael. They didn't want to scar. They didn't want him like scarred. There is some scarring because he gets stabbed, I think, by Laurie.
Yeah.
But the rest of it is very much just a general face. I wouldn't call it an angelic face. But it's more kind of, you know, it's an odd choice. But again, I think that goes back to the childlike aspect.
Well, I love the way she basically he's struggling with Jamie Lee Curtis with Laurie, and she pulls the mask off as a way to distract him.
It's almost like him being emasculated, isn't it? Because he's so desperate to pull the mask back on.
Yeah, and you can see that.
It's like his power was taken away, isn't it? Really?
And I think that's a wonderful touch.
No, it says so much, that, doesn't it? Really?
But he always does his killing of the mask on.
Yeah.
He can't do it as himself.
Yeah, even as a child.
As a child, he has to.
Is that his true face?
Yeah. I say, when Halloween was made, it was just, that was the story. They didn't know there were going to be any sequels. So the audience, John Carpenter, I presume, is thinking, well, the audience wants to see what's under this mask. To finish the end of the film, we just see what's under the mask. No idea that there was going to be any more. That was the end of, Halloween was the story. And that was the end when Halloween finished. That was the end of the story. Michael Myers is still alive, presumably, but, it's a complete thing in itself, rather than sort of leading on to another film.
A lot of people came back to John Carpenter and said that their scariest moment was the reveal, and they're like, the mask came off and he was so ugly and hideous underneath. It was terrifying, and they were like, there's barely any scarring. That's just a normal face. And Carpenter said that's just the power of the film and the power of the music and the power of horror.
And maybe that's why they wanted that specific actor's face, because there's a kind of blankness to it that you can project on.
Yeah.
I just think it's a wonderful moment, but I do remember that, at the end, Laurie seems to kill the Shape and does it 2 or 3 times, and then Dr. Loomis turns up and finally shoots him several times and falls, and you think he's dead, but then Dr. Loomis goes and looks, and he's not there anymore, and the music comes on and you can hear him breathing. And I remember that my reaction, I literally talked to the TV when I was watching it in 1996, because this is not ambiguous. You can hear him breathing. I don't get it. And I didn't get it, but so it stayed with me. And I later rewatched it and I found an increasingly powerful ending. Yeah. And something I found really chilling is not the moment where Dr. Loomis sees that he's gone and that obviously he's not dead, but Laurie starts crying, and it's like she realises, without Dr. Loomis saying anything, she realises he's still the Shape, Michael, whatever. He's
can't kill the boogeyman.
What's the boogeyman?
As a matter of fact, it was.
And that's such a great horror ending. And I think it's wonderful. What do you all think about the end of the film?
It certainly wasn't uncommon in 1970s horror films to have an ambiguous or twist ending. The Omen ends with Damien surviving. Rosemary's Baby ends with that. Night of the Living Dead ends with the hero being shot. So that's just following a trend as well. That's what you did in horror films in the 1970s. You had that sort of...
the ambiguous or bad ending.
The bad ending, the downbeat ending, where the bad guy survives. Or does he? I mean, this is the thing. Did he just get up and then fall somewhere else?
There's someone move the body.
Yeah, exactly. You don't know. This is the thing. Did he steal a bulletproof vest when he broke into the shop? Yeah. So all those shots don't have any effect on him. And that's what I mean. I don't know. That's what's so great about it.
That's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of
Halloween 2, which I only ever saw it at the time, but that kind of starts up like 10 minutes after Halloween ends.
That's right, yeah.
So it's more or less the story just continues where he just almost takes goes to the hospital and just starts randomly killing people. I don't have very good memories of that film, but I'd have to watch it again, I think.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and we will certainly be discussing it next time. That ending of the first film, although I think it's a perfect ending, it's a complete film, but it does leave you wanting to watch more because you still don't know. You don't know where it can go. And you watch Halloween 2 and the others, and they go in a certain direction, which, for good or ill, which we'll discuss in other shows. But what I like now is that they're releasing the new Halloween film, which is ignoring all the others, and I'm not excited about that because I think the other films are necessarily terrible and should be ignored. I'm excited about it because it means I can approach the new film with the same feeling that I originally had at the end of the first film. I have no idea where this is going. Like Howard said, he's not necessarily definitely supernatural. He could have been wearing a bulletproof vest. It could be something else. We still don't know why he was stalking those people.
Do we see any bullet holes? Do we see any damage?
No.
So maybe he didn't get hit.
Yeah.
Maybe
Donald Pleasant's a really bad shot.
Yeah, he's thrown back by the shot.
Well, yeah.
So it does look like. But
He does that kind of weird sort of line dancing, doesn't he?
he does. He reacts quite romantically.
Is that just bad acting, or is that deliberate? It's like some sort of weird pirouette he does before he falls out the window.
He does, yeah. I don't know. It's just
Scottish traditional Scottish dancing.
Maybe that's what Nick Castle brought to it in terms of his physical performance as Myers. And Nick Castle is playing Michael Myers at least in some sections of the new film.
Really?
Brought him back at age 70.
That's cool.
Isn't he like a production designer or something?
No, he's a director and he's a writer. He co-wrote Escape from New York. And then he went on to direct such films as The Last Starfighter.
That's him.
Yeah, he was the original director of the film that became Steven Spielberg's Hook.
Really?
And he was replaced. Obviously, he left the production. I was replaced, but he still gets a story credit on it because he worked on the script for so long.
Brilliant.
So yeah, and also he wrote the song in Escape from New York, the "Shoot a Cop with a Gun" song. He's a multi-talented man, and there's because he's done the new film, he's done a round of interviews, and there's footage of him on YouTube, and he's quite an interesting fellow. He also played the beach ball alien in Dark Star. John Carpenter's Dark Star, his first film. So,
What, he was in a beach ball?
Yeah, have you seen Dark Star?
Yeah, or does he do those claws that move? Is that him?
I'm not sure how technically it works. He might just have been in it pushing it along, but I'm not sure. But apparently he played the alien. Great, does anybody else have anything to say about the end?
I don't know, really.
And let's mention Charles Cyphers as the sheriff.
Yeah.
He was part of the John Carpenter Repertory Company at the time. He's in The Fog.
He's in Assault on Prison 13.
Halloween, everyone deserves a one good scare.
Yeah.
Or several.
No, he's terrific in his minor role, but it's just really perfectly integrated. You know, you get a good sense of the character.
I think he's a really good kind of grounding point for the kind of. There's all this kind of crazy stuff going on, but he's like, I'm a small town sheriff, just do my errands, kind of thing. And I think that's really good.
And I think it's quite an effective double act, him and Loomis. And I think that's one of the disappointments of Halloween 2 is that it can't carry that on.
Yeah.
They're both in the film, but they don't really get a lot of time together.
There's a scene where they own a house and there's a dead dog, which we don't see. Which presumably been eaten. He's eaten it. And Charles Cyphers, a man wouldn't do that. This isn't a man.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So this movie was a massive, huge success. It was made for $325,000, and its US box office take, according to the Internet Movie Database, was 47 million. It was the most successful independent movie ever made until the Blair Witch Project, or if you ask some people, they say until Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which was also an independent film. I'm not sure exactly what the figures were, but for a long time it just transformed the industry.
It just showed what you can do when you have a great person behind the camera, a great team, great performers, and it can, and it wasn't much of a success until they got a couple of really good reviews. I think it was Roger Ebert and then it just shot off into the stratosphere and everything.
It's one of those films that survives by word of mouth.
Yeah.
It's never going to get great reviews from some people, because horror films don't.
No.
Some people don't like horror.
Some people just don't.
But it's one of those films, I've seen Halloween, it's really scary.
Well, it's a film that people will watch again every Halloween, isn't it? It's got that sort of built-in sort of...
I watched it again the other night and it still works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it seems to get better because I don't know, you appreciate the craft, the talent that's making it.
So that was kind of, just remind me, that's another kind of horror trope that they invented, was the holiday-themed horror. So we had things like New Year's Day, Happy Birthday to You, Graduation Day, April Fool's Day.
I have to correct you, Dan. The title is New Year's Evil.
Oh, sorry, New Year's Evil. You know,
which is great.
So which is an even better title, really. But yeah, you know, and there's prom night, and you know, you could. A list goes on. Friday the 13th.
Yeah, I think you've maybe hit on a good point there, Steve, that I hadn't kind of considered. It's not just that Halloween showed film producers that you could spend very little money and make a lot of money by using this kind of subject matter and this approach, but also that if you set it on a holiday that happens every year, you've got a potential for it to be re-released every year or shown on TV every year. The residuals keep coming in, and there are so many of those movies based around a date. Mother's Day and
Mother's Day, yeah.
Yeah, no,
I think I might just go through all of them.
All
the holiday films. Black Christmas. I know you were talking at the start about you know, the creation of the slasher genre and stuff. And arguably, I might argue that Black Christmas invented it, but Halloween cemented it.
Yeah,
if you
popularised.
Yeah, and I read
that Psycho was the first slasher film.
Yeah, you could say that as well, and you could argue that as well. But
I think slasher films are a particular genre in that they are about homicidal maniacs stalking people and killing them off.
I mean, if you look, apparently, the Halloween was initially a Black Christmas. Going to be a Black Christmas sequel, apparently.
Oh, I've never heard that.
You know, that was on IMDb as well. Possibly, could be true, could be not true. But apparently, Carpenter was a fan, and he wanted to do a sequel, but it transformed into Halloween. Don't know how much credence that has, but you can see it from the creepy phone calls, the breathing down the phone, the point of view shots. Like it's all point. I don't think you ever see the killer in Black Christmas. I think it's purely point of view shots, which is and there's the weird phone calls are so bizarre. But that is a really strong film, and I think if you like Halloween, you should definitely watch the original Black Christmas.
I shall re-watch it.
It's so strong, such a strong, and it's not nail-bitingly kind of intense. I watched it a few Christmases ago and was just blown away. It's got that element, it's got that voyeuristic thing that we were speaking about.
Margot Kidder, who was also in Brian De Palma's Sisters, which is also a good horror film.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely a worthy predecessor to Halloween that I think is.
I should re-watch it.
It's really strong.
I remember when I watched Black Christmas thinking it's a slicker film.
Yeah.
It's kind of, it looks like more of it. I don't know if it was a much bigger budget.
Maybe
it looked more complete and more like a conventional, well-made film.
Yeah.
And on that note, my final question was going to be: do we feel that Halloween should have stood alone as a single film, or are we glad that it continued as a franchise? And still does, in fact, to this day, in its strange discontinuity kind of way.
I've not seen many of that. After number 3, I kind of stopped. I've not seen any of the others beyond that. I don't even know how many there are. But I don't think Carpenter had the. But I don't think he had the rights. Does it? Is it Mustafa Akkad who owns the rights?
Carpenter
will probably continue making them until infinity, really.
Akkad, God rest his soul, who was killed in a terrorist attack in 2005, said he would never stop.
Right.
And now his son continues to make them.
Right.
Carpenter did sell his rights or his interest in the property after the third film, but he is involved with the new one. And he's doing the music for the new one.
Oh. Is he directing? No.
No.
He's not directing.
No. And I think with Carpenter...
I thought he was directing.
No.
I was hoping he was directing.
Well, I think with Carpenter, having seen his music gigs in recent years and seen the stuff he's been putting out, he lost his love for the filmmaking craft a long time ago, but he still loves doing the music.
Right.
So if music's what he loves and he's contributing it into a way that he loves.
Yeah.
I think he prefers to spend his time like sitting on his couch in a sort of a badly fitting bathrobe watching wrestling and then playing video games. That's how he spends his time.
Where have you got that from?
I've only heard this from someone else, so that might be completely erroneous. But, I think fair play, he can do it. He wants, can't he?
That's what I want to do.
He's got to spend his day smoking, watching wrestling, you know. Good luck to him.
He's retired. And one of the things I love doing
he did that film, was it the last one, it was probably about 5 or 6 years ago.
The Ward.
Yeah, it was okay.
It's alright.
But it'd be a shame that it'd be great if you had one more film in him.
It would, but
that's the dream, isn't it? Really.
I mean, I love Carpenter and I love all his films, even the bad ones, and I think they're all remarkably interesting. But I just feel like we've been saying if he could just do one more good film for like 20 years. He's not going to do one.
No, he's not. If he's lost interest, then he won't anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Although I do hear that his episode of Masters of Horror is great, which is the second to last thing he ever directed.
Yeah.
So I'd like to check that out.
But he was one of the best directors in the world for about 6, 7, 8 years. How many people can say that? He made some of the best films around.
He made like 6 great classic films.
We're still talking about one that was released in 1978.
40 years ago.
And he's so, I mean, his music is so influential. There's so many bands around today, like Boards of Canada, who
they're great.
I love their music, but they're clearly very influenced by him, you know. So his music influence is so huge, actually.
I think because the ending is so, you know, it is open. Like you said, it interested you, interested. Like we've all seen the sequels, so it's opened a fascination for us to follow that trend. To go, that's really intriguing. That's really interesting. Yes, I want more. You know, do I need more? Probably not. But I mean, I'd like to have seen it maybe taken in a different direction and making him more human, making him more, you know, involving his family and stuff. I think the more kind of ethereal and ghost or, you know, pure evil he is, the more interesting he is to me. I get why they would go that route and make it more about his family, give him more human motivations and the backstory and everything. But I think that takes something away from his original, The Shape, being The Shape. I think putting too much, like we said, the childlike stuff's enough for me. I don't think I need all the backstory and where it comes from, how he became, you know, mentally ill, blah 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 blah. So I would like to have seen it go in a different way. I don't know what way you would take that. I don't really have my own ideas on that, but I would like to have seen it in a different light or in a different, different direction, basically. But I've enjoyed the sequels in various ways, you know. But generally, maybe not. I'm not sure.
Oh, there's certainly interesting stuff to be had there.
Yeah.
I'm kind of on the same page with you, I think.
I think sequels are inevitable. When you have a really successful film, there's going to be sequels. Whatever you might think of them, they are going to happen. The first film is a great film, and you can watch it on its own as a great film. The sequels, they do in a way, yes. When you've seen the sequels, they can affect your viewing of the first film. You think, oh, the reason he's doing all this is because she's his sister or all this sort of thing, or Andy.
Retroactive continuity.
Yeah, the first film kind of exists for me on its own as a great film, and the sequels are what they are. And you know, sequels are always in a difficult position that you've got to give people what they like from the first film, and at the same time slightly do something slightly different. Yeah. And that's quite difficult to do. And Halloween didn't solve that problem any more than the million other sequels that are made from all the other horror films or films.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point.
I think the concept of the third one being just using Halloween and having a different villain and different characters just more interesting, really. And if they'd gone down that route of just using the banner of Halloween to introduce new scenarios, it would have, as a concept, really, that would have been more interesting to me, I think, rather than Michael Myers just going on and on, just forever, seemingly indestructible. I mean, I don't even, you know, is he ever killed in that H20? I've not even seen that one.
All I will say is, because we obviously are going to discuss these movies, but all I will say is that I think there was a clause in the contract that Moustapha Akkad insisted on in the later sequels, which is he must never be killed and we must never see his face. And I think that takes away two dramatic possibilities that the first film hinted at. So it limits what you can do.
Well, yeah, if you've got a villain who can't be killed, what's the point?
Yeah.
There's no suspense there because you can't stop him. So
do they ever kind of explain the unkillableness of him?
Oh, they sort of tried to.
Yeah.
But that's a conversation for another day.
Okay.
That's the conversation.
Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I think we have discussed. We've gone wonderfully in depth on an absolutely wonderful film.
Yes, it is
one
a
of
great
my
film.
one of my very favourites, and I hope that this has been interesting for the listeners who are any fans of the film or people seeking to discover it. It's certainly been very interesting for me to have this conversation, so thank you very much, Dan, Howard and Steve, for your contributions. Dear listeners, we shall return with Halloween 2 in a matter of days. Thank you so much and see you then. Listening to And Now the Podcast Starts, presented by Howard Whittock and myself, with special guest Steve Timms and Dan Brazier. Our specially composed theme music is by Greg Hugh, and the podcast is produced by Ambidextrous Solutions Limited. If you enjoyed listening, please give the video a like. You must! Find us on Facebook and Twitter, and subscribe to the Ambidextrous Solutions Limited channel. See you next time.